This is rumor control. Here are the facts.
Hey, everybody. Here we are again.
Welcome.
Welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast.
I'm your host, Jaime Prater.
We're not going to do that anymore. We just felt like it was a good time. We are about a week and 2 days away from Alien Day. We just
How did that happen?
I don't even know.
Crazy.
I feel like we're still out of breath from last year.
I feel like it's not even December yet of last year.
Oh.
And here it is. We have a week till Alien Day, basically.
And we decided to come and talk to everybody because we hit 150,000 downloads for our podcast, which is amazing. And it's thanks to you guys and everyone who supported us from the beginning, from my original co-host, Peter Haight, to Ryan Zaid, to everyone involved in the show. I thanked everybody on the post that we made. Clara, Dave Gogol, Mike, Sean, John, Connor. Anybody else? Michael.
Inga,
of course.
Inga, very much.
Mike Andrews, who was just really who we are now is because of who we were then and who was involved and who helped push us to this place. And it's just really a great honor, and it's an honor to still be friends with everyone, even the people who aren't as involved with PO as they used to be. It's a great thing. It's a great thing to have 150,000 downloads of a show that was just this little tiny thing. And now it's this great big thing, and
that's a lot of fucking downloads.
It is a lot of downloads. It's great.
I mean, like I know, we're not like Serial. We're not This American Life, but we have considering it's a niche sci-fi podcast, that's a lot of obsessive alien people out there who are listening to the show. And for when we hit 100,000, I remember that felt
which
like,
was like what, 4 months ago?
It was like 4 months ago, four 5 months ago. So I remember that felt like we're never gonna get,
and that took 4 years to happen almost.
Yeah, and then this was like this creeped up on us because I remember I texted you a few days ago. I was like, I think we're gonna, when I drop this next show, I think we're gonna hit 150.
Yeah.
And sure enough, by the time that episode came out on Friday, we were at 149,310 or something like that. And I was like, holy fuck, this is gonna push us over. Yeah. And then we were counting down, and when we got to 150, we freaked out. It was amazing.
Yeah. So
I feel like the amount of just excitement out there is just so great. And
it
to
is,
be a part
and fandom in general right now is really excited, just with everything, not just Alien, but like with Star Wars and I don't know, with Dune, the Avengers. There's so much great stuff coming up. It's just a great time to kind of be involved in fan groups and on social media, as long as you're choosing the right groups and not being a part of any kind of toxicity. It's really great. It's just a really fun time. And
it's a great time to be a nerd.
We have Alien Day coming up in a week and 2 days. So 9 days is Alien Day. And we have a lot planned, so much planned. And we just want to talk to you guys a little bit about it. Just briefly, we don't want to spoil anything. One of the things that we are releasing is our interview with Dan O'Bannon's wife, and that was just one of our best interviews, and she was just an incredibly lovely person. And I didn't want to get off the phone. Like, it was just a really wonderful hour that we spent with her.
I still think about that a lot as a high watermark for me. Like, that was, I remember you said something to me that really stuck with me, because we got off. So Jamie and I did this one together, and we got off the phone with her, and we kind of stayed on for a few minutes just to sort of like kind of decompress a little bit. And you said man, we're really in it. And I was like, you're right. Like, it's amazing. Like, we are so close to the birth of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was a moment where we got such a human connection to such a touchstone to this guy who passed away years and years ago now at this point. And this person who we talk about all the time, and it was like seeing him come back to life a little bit through Mrs. O'Bannon, who was just an incredible interview guest on her own right, and had a lot of very interesting things about her own life to tell us. And I felt like when you said that, it really hit me, like that we're not fucking around. Like, this is not a game anymore, Like, we are fulfilling something that I think is vitally important in fandom, which is that we are helping to reconnect old dots that I'm not saying that Diane is dying anytime soon or anything, but the reality is that, like, as more people from that era move on, and move away from the industry and things like that, like, it's really important that we continue to reconnect with people so that we don't lose sight of their stories, and so that, like, we can kind of keep things congealed as a fandom, because this is our shared history and we're a part of it, in our own small way, just as fans.
And I think
cataloging is amazing.
Yeah, and to be connected to the wife of the man who began Alien. We would not be here if it was not for Dan O'Bannon. End of story.
Yeah.
Certainly, he had a vision. He had so much that he brought to his story, and then he gave that story to Fox and to David Hill and Walter Geiler and David Hill. Is that right? I always get those names confused.
Geiler and Hill, yeah,
Geiler
right.
And Hill. And they perfected it, but it was his story. Yeah, much of his lines are there still. They kind of made a little bit, I wouldn't say more sense of it, but they kind of made it work for the environment that they were going to make the film in, but it was Dan O'Bannon's script. And we are sitting here talking today about Aliens and Alien 3 and Resurrection and Prometheus and Covenant because of Dan O'Bannon.
It's all because of him, It is all because of him. It is all because of his experience.
Giger is because of him.
Giger, as we know him, is because of him, right? Yeah. And if he hadn't been, coming off of Dark Star and then going into this Dune project and then that falling apart and him wanting to reconnect with science fiction and all these, if all these things hadn't gone a certain way, then we would not be here in this moment together. I wouldn't have come out and hung out with you a couple months ago, I mean, after we wrapped this,
can you believe that?
Time is fucking crazy.
It is. I still have his cup in my car, folks.
It's fucking disgusting.
I do, and I have
and
I have your bag of that pastry you got at Starbucks in my back of my. I do, and I have your water bottle in my back seat too.
It's fucking disgusting.
I can't let go.
But I feel like it's amazing that you can have a legacy like that. That you can have a brilliant idea, and that 40 years later, you will be bringing best friends together from around the world. And after we wrap this video call, you and I are going to talk to the guy who's running the Alien exhibit at USC. I mean, that's a whole fucking film exhibit that's happening because of this one dude's ideas. It's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is.
And we got to connect with him as closely as anybody at this point can because he's gone through his amazing widow. So it's just amazing.
And we not just connecting with him. I mean, we were at the USC exhibit and we saw the stuff that he wrote, the stuff that he
saw his actual handwriting.
Yeah,
we saw his chest diagram.
The image that we're going to be using for the episode with Diane Bannon. I dropped that image today on our Facebook page, which I'm sure everybody saw, or a lot of people did. But I'm using that same image to release the episode, or we are. But yeah, just to have seen that stuff up close, to have been so close to the origins of kind of our fandom or things that kind of give us life and bring us life is just a great thing.
And that particular thing, and I know we got to move on from this, but that particular image to me is very powerful on a number of levels. But one of them is because you can see his pen marks and you can see like his hand smudges and things. And that's an image that we've seen so many times because it's one of the favorite kind of behind the scenes things. And, in the memory documentary, it was very prominently featured and all these different things. But with seeing the actual paper, not just this digitized reproduction of it that we've seen in every book and things like that, but the actual piece of notebook paper that it was written on was a very real moment for me because, like you said, like we're in the center of it. Like we getting to go to that exhibit was getting so close to the heart of this thing and to uncovering some layer of divine mystery that has beguiled us for 40 years. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I agree.
Anyway, there's lots of other shit coming out on Alien Day too.
Yeah, there is. We have some other interviews, like for instance, there's Ash, a fan fiction, which is a friend of ours, Michael Scudieri. He has been working on that for months and months and months. Our friend Devin, what's Devin's last name again? I can't remember. Devin is doing Aletharos, which is another fan fiction.
D-E-O-N. Can't think of the last name, but
Devin,
yes.
Whatever.
Great dude.
He knows. We know him. He knows us.
We know him.
We love him. He's
incredibly talented.
His art is amazing.
Also a very
Michael's
nice guy.
art is amazing. Yeah, they're both just incredibly.
Is it Gill?
Yes, Devin Gill.
Devin Gill. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Patrick saves the day. But yeah, just really great gentlemen, really kind, fervent, and passionate about their fandom and about being involved in kind of everything that we're involved in, and they kind of want to give back, and they're making all this free content to release on Alien Day, and we are too. We've been working on a web series. It's more of a diary. It's like a video diary. It's very simple. It's kind of one person, one camera, but really, all I want to say about this is I've been feeling tired of tropes. To be honest with you, like I feel like for me, the OT, the original Alien films, are stories. They're not stories built around tropes. They're tropes built around stories. And I felt like I wanted to tell a story that you don't see anything in. You don't see an alien. You don't see a facehugger. You don't see an egg. You don't see, you hear and see a woman talking about her experience on this planet that she's on. And I felt like, how can I make a gripping story that's interesting, that's intriguing, that's suspenseful, first person? And Alien Outland, it's a little risky. I don't know. Hopefully everyone likes it. It seems to be coming out well. I've been getting a few good responses to the test audience that I've shown it to. It's going to be about 10 episodes. We're debuting 2 of them on Alien Day, and the rest are going to be weekly. Again, not a huge thing, but I felt like I wanted to do a little bit more than just an audio drama. And Patrick has done the music. His wife is the star. We have another star who's in it too, or another friend of ours who everyone will know when they see her. Maybe
we're going to save that. We're going to save that reveal.
Yeah, we'll save that reveal. But it's coming out pretty great, and I'm excited.
It's amazing. It's so fun. It's so different and so interesting, and I think it's going to be. I mean, it might not make an enormous splash right away, but I think it's something people are going to listen to and share and come back to, and I think it will have legs in the long term. I really do.
I hope so. I really do. And I loved writing the story. So the genesis of this is I applied for or submitted a script for the Tongle short films back last summer. I think early in the summer, or was it July? I think, and of course I didn't. I wasn't accepted, which 550 people. But I felt like I need to tell the story in a way that's right. And I was talking with Patrick, and I was like, would Micah be willing to do this? And you were like, yeah, let's do it. And so
let's fucking do it.
And it's been somewhat easy to do. It's been, everyone's just kind of volunteered their time. Micah, she's been working hard, and I know that she's come home and she's sitting and she's doing these videos, and it's awesome. I've been having a great time editing them. So, and
a little behind the scenes trivia. I've shown Jaime pictures of this, but our cat, whose name is Ripley, keeps jumping into the frame of the shoot, and so we have like dozens of outtakes of Ripley just like jumping in the background with her fucking eyes glowing, and like that looks. It kind of suits the story, but it might be a little bit too much.
Yeah,
but it's going to be super cool.
Oh, she's in the shot.
Yeah, well, I've gotten rid of the ones where she's in the shot.
Oh, okay. Well, that'd be.
I just have still frames from them.
If she walked through, kind of a wink to Ripley, to Jonesy.
Yeah, see.
But yeah, so that's what we're working on, and there's more coming up. Last year's Alien Day was crazy fun, but it was a lot of work. We'll probably have a couple more reveals on Alien Day, but we just want to get together and say thank you for the 150,000 downloads, and here's to 150,000 more, and
totally
at least 5 more years, and more films, and a new studio, a reborn studio, and yeah,
it's a big time. And stay tuned to the page throughout Alien Day. We're both going to be doing a lot of other things that day as well, but like just like last year, I took the day off of work. I'm going to be doing a lot of games with the kids. I'll be sharing pictures of that. We got some vintage painting sets. We're going to be doing some craft work with that. I'm going to do a live stream tour of my alien room and show you guys some of like the collectibles that I've gotten through the years, and tell some stories about that, and hopefully you guys can pitch in if you're watching. There's going to be some fun interactive stuff going on too. Yeah. So if you have taken the day off, or if you can stick around, please do, because we'll be there and we'll be interacting with you guys.
Totally. Final thing, we're doing a major giveaway through Perfect Organism. We're giving away a shit ton of stuff.
A shit ton.
When I was at
ton
Fox,
of shit.
I've been to Fox a couple times in the past few months, but the first time I was there a few months ago, I was given all this swag, and I own a lot of it already. And me and Patrick have been talking, and I was like, I'd like to do a giveaway and give all of this stuff away. So you're talking 40th anniversary poster, 40th anniversary postcard, David's drawings, and other books, and a pop. But we'll explain that more. So it's going to be
that's fun. The 8-bit Funko Xenomorph.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet. Yeah. And the David's drawings book is I don't know if that's like becoming a sought after item. I'm assuming it's still in print, but it's like a fucking showpiece. That thing. Yeah. It is so amazing. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And
I almost don't want to give it away, even though I already have a copy. I was like, I should keep it.
it's just so pretty. And then when you open it up, it's such a treasure trove of brilliance. And also we were just talking, Matt Hatton, I fucking broke my poster. But he's been putting up these amazing high quality files for download in celebration of Alien Day. There might be some more coming. There might not be. But if you don't already like Dane Hallett's page, artist page on Facebook, make sure you do. Hallett. He was a production artist on Covenant, and he is just obscenely gifted.
Yeah, and he's giving away
things out on these huge
300
posters.
plus megabyte files that you can print and do whatever you want with. And I've got all of them. I don't have any wall space in my bedroom because
there's nowhere I can put it at this. Like I'm printing it so that when we move into a bigger place someday, I'll have more room. I think for now it's going to go right above my computer though.
I have a door that I could fit 2 posters on probably, and another door that I could fit 2 posters on. Plus, I just got prints of Ripley. It just keep coming. I need a poster of Vertigo, one of my favorite films.
Put that on the ceiling.
Yeah, probably,
right?
Probably next to the mirror.
Right next to the mirror.
At any rate,
excellent.
Thank you guys so much. We just want to check in and say hello, and we'll see you guys on Alien Day.
Bye, guys.
Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us again on this video episode, this unexpected second part of our video episode. And we're here with Alex Ago, who is the curator, I would call you, of the USC Alien 40th Anniversary exhibit. And we're here to talk about, I'm curious about, number one, like, how did this happen? How did it come about?
Sure. The exhibit is a collaboration with the 20th Century Fox Archives. And it started actually because I'd say its antecedent is that the Ridley Scott Archive was donated to USC a few years ago. And that's a donation to our much larger archives of film history that we have. But Ridley decided to leave us boxes and boxes of documents, and in some cases a lot of photography and some physical objects from some of his films. And a few years ago, I had wanted to do a complete Ridley Scott retrospective. Unfortunately, the funding that I need to do something like that has to be applied for almost a year before the project actually happens. And for me to do a retrospective honoring a living filmmaker, I kind of need that filmmaker to actually participate. And as we all know, Ridley is an incredibly prolific filmmaker who seemingly never stops making films. And I think actually since I proposed the Ridley Scott retrospective, he's made another 3 films. So
I think since we started recording, he's made at least another 1. He's very busy.
It's amazing. And so I couldn't actually get Ridley's office to confirm that he could ever make it over the course of what might have been a 3 or 4 month retrospective. And so that kind of brought that idea to an end. And that was obviously very disappointing because I knew that we had all of these treasures in the archives. And I also was really looking forward to bringing all these films back to the big screen. But in lieu of that project, I did something else. Actually, it was maybe a year later. I decided to do a 50th anniversary of Planet of the Apes exhibit and retrospective at USC. And that had a lot of USC tie-ins, starting with the fact that Matt Reeves, the director of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes, is a USC alum. And I was so impressed by those movies that I talked to Matt about whether he thought we could pull something off to bring together the entire franchise. And then we kind of realized it was its 50th anniversary. And so I took that idea to the Fox Archives and established a relationship and basically outlined what I wanted to do, which was to bring together an exhibit of props and costumes, concept art, production designs, even merchandise, ephemera, consumer products, comic books, really as much as I could get my hands on that would make for a really cool exhibit. And we did it. And that project spanned a good 4 months on campus, and we did all sorts of really interesting, unusual things where we not just had the exhibit, but we also had a lot of panel discussions with filmmakers, but also people from the universe outside of the films, meaning the Boom Comics people who designed the comics, the people who run fan sites, the people who were in charge of canon over at Fox, and things like that. When we wrapped that project, we were talking about other things we could do together. And the Fox team over in their franchise department were mentioning that it was the 40th anniversary of Alien. And so it was sort of a natural segue for us in terms of our working relationship to transition over to doing an Alien retrospective, not just because the Alien films are an obsession of mine, and I happen to have loved them really for as long as I can remember, but because also the franchise in its very earliest form was created by Dan O'Bannon, who is a USC graduate. So there was also a really nice alumnus tie-in, and that tends to also be a really nice way to kick off a project when you know that you're also going to be honoring someone's work who was important to the school. So that was the outset. Was, you know, we can do another exhibit that would be tied into an anniversary of a really cherished franchise, and we'd have the support of the studio that's responsible for it, meaning we would have access to its archives. But of course, we also now had the Ridley Scott archives, so that those two things sort of came together, and it made for what I thought at the beginning would be a very rich collection of things that I could draw from. But you know, unfortunately, the sort of pie in the sky access to all of these things didn't necessarily turn out to be true, for reasons I can discuss. But that's at least the very origin of the project.
Well, can I just ask like a dumb outsider question just before we get into some of the specifics? When you say you have access or like a working relationship with, for example, the Fox archives or the Ridley Scott archives, what does that mean exactly in terms of like, is this a catalog system with a warehouse attached to it? Is this some sort of like an estate? Like, what does that actually look like?
So the Fox archives are a lot more user-friendly than ours, at least in terms of the Ridley Scott archive, because we received boxes and boxes and boxes from the Ridley Scott estate, and that's really right now still just sort of in a cataloged form, but housed in a secure location without really being something that people can access. It's really, for the time being at least, not meant to be used except for by us, basically by the university, for research or for the purposes of an exhibit or various other things like that. The Fox archive is a lot more user friendly in the sense that I have contacts that are either in props or wardrobe, photography, artwork, etc., and they can provide me with things specific to each movie. So the props division has a database, and they'll send me basically a spreadsheet with photos of every prop that they have available, and they're accessible from every single Alien film. And then I can basically pick and choose what I want. Ditto for photography, poster art, concept art, wardrobe as well. And so, yeah, basically the process of choosing from the Fox archive starts with them compiling these documents that they send to me. And most of it is easy except for photography, because those are just enormous documents that have thousands of images. And even just doing the first pass through it can be really daunting. But then, slowly start to sort of come up with themes for things that you want to show, and knowing a general amount of space that I have to fill, I can start to pare it down. The complicated thing for this project, though, that is actually very similar to Planet of the Apes, is that the Fox archive didn't exist in 1979. So there is almost nothing available from Alien except for behind-the-scenes photography, concept photos, stuff like that. So unfortunately, that was the big roadblock with which we started the project. And, Fox had asked me to do as much as possible an exhibit that was specifically about the first film. And that, of course, was a different challenge because with Planet of the Apes, even though we were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the original film, I was putting together an exhibit that drew from every single iteration of the franchise. And that was incredibly important to do a good exhibit because they have almost nothing from the first Planet of the Apes, is similar to Alien. Again, they had photography and concept art and poster art and production design stuff, but they didn't have any physical objects except for a couple of rifles. So
that's it.
Back in the day, filmmakers would take things or they would auction off props. And so a lot of stuff was just gone, and they didn't really have the same mentality for preserving the heritage and history of their productions. Of course, wardrobe in particular was a tricky one because a lot of wardrobe gets repurposed, for other films, particularly in a franchise where there's 5 movies. They might reuse costumes until they're basically torn to shreds. And so the Planet of the Apes materials were very thin from the original first 5 films, but luckily there were these gorgeous costumes that had been designed for the Tim Burton film. And that's a very interesting scenario because I couldn't really pull together costumes from the new movies either because those characters are all digital.
There's so many digital characters, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's weird because the Tim Burton film, which is so frequently maligned, wound up being the most valuable one for actually providing tangible things like costumes and props. And luckily, the craftsmanship on that film was at such an incredibly high level that those are exactly the parts of the film that you wanted to celebrate anyway. Mm-hmm. So we did that, and then we had some props from the new films. But basically, I couldn't have done it had I not spanned the whole franchise. I had higher hopes when we got to Alien because I thought, 10 years later, maybe Fox had been more successful at retaining objects. But unfortunately, that was not the case. And the only actual artifacts, like props from the original Alien, all come from private collectors. None of it came from Fox. And so to actually build out this exhibit just based on the first film, we had a strategy, which was to go out to private collectors the way that we had done to some extent with Planet of the Apes. With the Apes exhibit, a lot of people started to come to me because they had heard that we were doing this exhibit and they really wanted to participate. So they were very proactive. They got in touch with me. We kind of stalled the opening a little bit to see what they had and to bring it to USC and then have it placed. So we decided to sort of reverse that and go out to collectors from the get-go. And unfortunately with Alien, the key collector in all of this, Bob Burns, he wasn't really able to help. He's getting old. He's probably not thrilled at the idea of transplanting his most precious items over to some other place for 6 months. And so it became clear that we weren't going to get a whole bunch of stuff from individuals, which left me with this looming problem, which was if all I've got are photography or posters or concept art and no objects, then I'd have to then make an exhibit with that and with whatever I could find in the Ridley archives. So that brings me to my second problem, which is that Ridley held back on a lot of the films that I think he cares the most about when he gave us his archive. So I could provide you with literally 30, 40 boxes of stuff from G.I. Jane, but there's almost nothing from Blade Runner and there's very little from Alien. What that leaves me with then are documents. So there's no artifacts in the Ridley archive that are props from the movie or anything that would be exciting to look at visually if you're not a diehard fan who really likes to read the documents. I mean, I do, but this is also meant to be something accessible for the casual, student walking through it. And I know that those documents are going to be more exciting for people who really know the history of the making of the movie. So without props from the archive and without props from the Ridley Scott collection, I wasn't really going to have an exhibit. So I talked to Fox about it, and they allowed me to expand the scope of it. So now I was able to incorporate anything I wanted to from the 6 specifically Alien films. We chose that because the space is small, we chose not to delve into the world of Alien versus Predator.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
There is a sense that those 2 films are actually more Predator canon than Alien canon. And I mean, besides agreeing with that and also not particularly liking them, I was happy to move past them pretty quickly. But I don't want to deny the fact that there are people out there that, sort of love that crossover, love those films. But with the exhibit being the size that it was going to be, I just didn't feel like we could fit it in, even if we wanted to. So then that gave us access to 6 films. And then slowly, as the years go on and Fox establishes its archives, the number of props kind of increases exponentially almost from Aliens to Covenant. And that's sort of the how the evolution of the exhibit went based on availability of things that we could actually put on display.
Which makes sense why we were like, wow, I feel like the prequels are really well represented. It's because the props are fresh and accessible, and they were already archived and ready to go. Basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The problem with Aliens is that James Cameron took a lot of the good stuff, and admittedly, if we had space to put the power loader on display, I might have, pushed a little bit with Lightstorm, but I think some of the things that they have are genuinely too large to ship over. And not that they were offering them, but I felt like, there's only so much space in that room. So I was even offered the Nostromo model that they have out in Burbank, not theirs, but the prop store. But I mean, there's just nowhere to put it, nowhere to keep it safe, because, I'm assuming that if you put something like that out on display, even in the lobby, that without some sort of ongoing security, there's a lot of opportunity for damage.
Oh, yeah.
So the Aliens collection was very thin as well. There's only 2 things. Soon to be 3 things, but there's only 2 things on display right now that are directly from that film. One is the face hugger in a cryotube that's in the back display. And I think Fox considers that the most prized possession that they have from any of the Alien films. That's the only thing that they specifically sent the archivist in person to actually place inside the exhibit. And so, I'm sure that your listeners remember well the sequence where, Burke unleashes the face hugger from one of the tubes in the laboratory. So this is another one of those face huggers, just sort of set dressing in the background. But it's very fragile, and but it is screen used, which is cool. And then the other thing that's on display in our weapons cabinet, though I can't really place it in the movie, is a rocket. And why not? Pulse rifle, so it was the best I could do. And then as the films go on, each film sort of brought a variety of different things. So there's some stuff from Alien 3, and then there's some really good stuff from Resurrection that's on display in the kind of Cabinet of Curiosities section.
Yeah. Her costume's just, you feel like Sigourney Weaver standing there. It's got her height and all of it.
That's my favorite Ripley costume. so happy it was there. I actually have more costumes, and this broke my heart a little bit. But in order to fit everything that I wanted to fit from the films, I had to kind of take out some of the stuff I had wanted to put in, including I have Charles Dutton's costume from Alien 3. I have Ripley's costume from Alien 3.
Oh,
and
wow.
I actually have the Vries costume from Alien 4, from Resurrection, including the leg braces. And I really want to figure out how to get this on display. And I had to custom order mannequins that were specific to all the costumes. So I feel like I need to do that at some point before we get to Resurrection in the film screening series that we're about to do. But you have to make decisions, and I thought that getting the spacesuits in there from Covenant and Prometheus would be really two So
those are incredible. Yeah,
they are.
See those in
And
person.
so, question about the engineer. Two parts. Ridley Scott donated his archive, or a portion of it. Was the engineer part of that? What does that mean? Like, is it just stuff from, say, Covenant and Prometheus that he worked on? Do those props was that included in those archives?
No, that comes from Fox.
Okay, that's what I
So
thought.
by the time we get to Prometheus and Covenant, they learn their lessons, and they're sort of hoarding everything they have. So there are tons of things that they have, and the engineer statue and the Tennessee spacesuit and that sort of large eco suit. Those were, when I saw those on the prop list, I was like, let's get them here. We'll figure out what to do with them later. The dimensions that they gave me and the dimensions that I knew I had from the cases actually wound up not working out because they're too large to fit through the doors to the cases. So I honestly thought I was going to have to crate them back up and ship them back, which was really depressing until I realized, that there's maybe some alcove space. If I put some sort of security around them, I could just leave them outside of the cases. Definitely too big to steal. And Fox was cool with it. So it's great that we have those, because those are really the best pictures for selfies. Photographing the cases is really tough because there's so much glare that, I know people will spend hours trying to get just the right angle so that the light or the flash isn't in the shot. So I'm really, really glad that we have those on display.
Yeah, they're amazing. I mean, again, I think the whole exhibit, when I walked in there, I was thinking this is almost to honor the 40 years of Alien, like all of the history in its wake, certainly the first film, but I got the sense that that's what you guys were going for with all of it. I didn't even process the idea that you couldn't get enough from Alien, so you had to kind of go with the other films. I think it was really successful. It's just, you feel the history again, having that costume of Sigourney or of Ripley from Resurrection, even though it's not from Alien, it feels like she has a presence there. It feels
Absolutely.
like she's large and looming. And that's just great to have the centerpiece of arguably the best, the OT, the original trilogy. It was just, even though Resurrection isn't really a part of that, it feels like it, though. It just felt like she was there. So bravo for that. That was great.
Thank you. That case has some really cool things in it. There's this sort of foam interior of her chest from Alien 3, and it's got the little kind of gestating alien embryo in her chest. And of course, in the movie, that's very down-resed because it's sort of a medical scan that they do on her body. And so they have to, because obviously when you look at it in person, it seems fake. But when you put grain and feed it through like television monitors and stuff like that, they got it to look pretty real. But what's cool is in the back, you can actually see sort of a hole where someone was sticking their hand to operate whatever pumping of the lungs or, something to make it look like it was alive.
That is awesome.
Yeah, go ahead, Patrick.
Well, I just another quick sort of specific prop question. Well, I guess I have another two-parter. I have a comment and then a question. My comment is, I think part of why we commented on the relative lack of aliens paraphernalia is just because we were in the middle of an aliens miniseries at that point, so we were kind of looking for more firsthand things from it. But it didn't seem like shocking at all. And it's one of those things you kind of understand, as you get further away from a production, things are going to get lost. It's going to get harder to track things down. But what I was really, my favorite thing about the entire exhibit was the paperwork from Alien. To me, like as a lifelong fan, getting to see Carlo Rambaldi's handwriting, getting to see Dan O'Bannon's like ridiculous chest burster sketch, like those things to me were magic. That was like, I think a lot of hardcore Alien fans that go like, it might not be a pressure suit, it might not be an ovomorph with with gloves inside of it, but getting to see the actual the documents where these ideas kind of came from, to me it was almost like looking at holy manuscripts or some shit. It was unbelievably powerful. So that was my comment. And I'll let you get. Go ahead. Yeah.
So just to quickly comment on the.
Yeah.
So this is where I get really lucky on things that I can't actually plan for. Basically, at a certain point in the planning process, I was contacted by the Giger estate, and they had found out that I was going to do this, and they wanted to get involved. And so, of course, that's like the greatest thing I could ever, like when I got that email, I just couldn't believe it, because I didn't even think to reach out to someone in Switzerland, about Giger artwork. And they said that they had these large lithographs that Giger had signed that they would be willing to loan, that were in Los Angeles, like in storage. And so they put me in touch with their guy out here in LA, and he's really cool, and he collects things that aren't necessarily just Alien specific. And when I went to meet him to take a look at these large pieces of artwork that we were going to hang, he mentioned that he had these Carlo Rambaldi designs, or the originals, and so of course I was like, we have to put this on display. And then he had a couple of other really cool things, including Brett's hat from the movie Screen One.
Yeah, which I don't even know if we had on the video, but that was something that I almost fainted when I saw it in that case in the front.
And an original, actual, like used Alien glove hand. And so he was telling me about the fact that he wanted to like track down this photo where you see the hand and you see Brett's face, and he's like, the hand is extending towards the hat. And so I'm like, oh, great. I'll just call the archives and get that photo. And we had that printed up, and, he had a little plaque that had, like officially signed by H.R. Giger. This has been used in the film, et cetera, et cetera. And then with the Rambaldi stuff, I realized that in the Ridley Scott archive, I had these amazing documents about what they expected Carlo Rambaldi to actually do in terms of designing the mechanics of the Alien. So you see, I mean, those two things don't normally live together. There's the designs that are part of a private collection, and then there's this documentation in the archives of the various stages of the Alien, which I didn't realize was called the Little Rascal, like early.
Yeah, right.
And so there's a breakdown of all the different special effects, mechanical effects that they're going to need these creatures to do, and then what they expect out of Carlo Rambaldi, like what they're hiring him to do. And you get all of that, and you throw in maybe a picture or two of Carlo with Giger or with Ridley, and suddenly you've got a really cool exhibit that's dedicated to this one very specific thing.
And that's in the same case, right? Isn't it? There's like typewritten pages, which are like the producer's expectations, and then and I didn't even know what I was, because I had just gotten off the plane and I was like super jet lagged, and I was like, Jamie, like I'm like I can't like keep my eyes open, I'm confused. And then I remember like I was looking at the script on that piece of paper, and it was in Italian, and I was like, whoa. And it's those little moments. I really hope, if people watching this have not gotten there yet, it's still going for another month, right? It's
until May 12th, yeah.
Yeah. So like it's moments like that that will just it's an unbelievable experience to see firsthand things that you've heard about all these years and to get to like be inches away from them like that. As a fan, it's just an incomparably cool experience. My one question for you was I noticed on the back of the so it looks like there's this protomorph from Covenant, this very large mechanized bust of the xenomorph or the protomorph. And it's kind of a central display item. It looks absolutely amazing. And I noticed that there's hookups for servos and everything trailing off the back of it.
Yeah.
Is that so?
I've done a dolly.
Oh, did it really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
Sorry.
Is there any way you can like hook that up and do a demo with it or something?
I wouldn't dare.
Yeah, fair enough.
I don't know anything about how it works, so I think that Fox might be upset with me if I tried to like turn it on. Although there is a power switch in there, but it arrived on a dolly, which means that you could clearly see it was used by someone, sort of probably underneath it,
right?
The mechanics, and the side of it, one side of it, the foam has started to come off, and obviously, at some point they should touch that up a bit. But what's cool about it now is you can then see into the skull and how some of the mechanics are hooked up.
Yeah. And it was cool because it was right across from the Rambaldi sketches. And I remember thinking like, oh man, this little cross current of the generations there with the mechanics of the inner workings of the jaw. It's just incredible. Anyway, Jamie, I'll toss it back up to you.
No, I actually, you kind of covered what I was going to ask, but it's a really wonderful thing, especially to me growing up in the Midwest, watching movies, and then you're that close to props and pieces of set or whatever of a film that you've been watching all of your life. It's an amazing thing. It's like you're kind of stepping. It's like you're stepping over the rainbow. It's like when in Mary Poppins they jump into the painting. It's an amazing thing to be in that space. So you guys did really an incredible job.
Thanks. I mean, part of it is also just kind of thinking about, besides the obvious, where to go for some stuff. And you mentioned the Dan O'Bannon case, and that was really nice because Diane O'Bannon, who loaned me everything, had been on campus a couple of years ago for another event that I did called Shock Value the Movie. Yeah. It was a compilation of horror shorts by a group of cinema students at USC in the late 60s, early 70s, including Dan O'Bannon and John Carpenter. And so Diane came to participate in the panel. So we were screening some of Dan's films, his student films. So I thought, why not reach out to her and see what she's got? And so, we got to talking, and the thing that she was really like so excited to share with me was this Polaroid of Giger wearing a face hugger. And she says, it's the only one that exists. And it's the most like valuable thing that I have. And so, I mean, I have to insure everything, and value for that, I mean, in terms of insurance was like $10,000.
Wow.
But the other thing that she had that, I mean, everything in that case is kind of magnificent, right? But some of the stuff was just, it cracked me up. The letter that Dan O'Bannon wrote to Giger explaining what he wanted out of Giger's designs, to then be accompanied by these sketches that are, for lack of a better word, adorable. And, and then in the letter it says, don't copy these designs.
Yeah, I saw that.
So, I mean, that's just, you can't anticipate that kind of treasures. You just sort of like landing on your desk. But, and then I wish that there were more space to show more of those illustrated designs from Ron Cobb and Chris Foss that are there, because she gave me this sketchbook. I mean, it's more than a sketchbook, but basically illustrations of the script. And there's probably 8 or 9 original pages. And for the sake of just having to keep everything viewable in that space, I just picked one Ron Cobb page and one Chris Foss page. And then that sort of leads you into the concept art section where it's Foss and Cobb and Giger and Mobius, just to show you the range of skilled artists that they brought together to try and sort of bring this concept to life.
It's amazing.
It is. Oddly enough, our next episode, I think it's going to be either episode 2 or 3 in our series that we're doing on Alien, because obviously it's the 40th anniversary of the film, is with Diane O'Bannon. We spoke to her for about an hour on the phone, and the night before we talked, I was talking to her on the phone, and she was like, yeah, I'm about to send USC some more stuff, And
some more stuff?
Well, this was some of the stuff that you were just
This is like 3 months ago.
Yeah, this was 3 months ago, because we did this interview a while ago, but it's kind of interesting hearing it all for full circle, the things that she was talking about to the things that you received.
And I remember she was like, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but I'm sending them some stuff. We'll see what happens. And now we got to see not only got to see what they did with it, but got to talk to you about it, which is like an interesting, it's weird.
Yeah.
What I love about it particularly is that, you hear about the production of Alien and you sort of feel bad for the marginalization of Dan O'Bannon, the sort of official history.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to see the Dan O'Bannon stuff at the very beginning of the exhibit. Like, people may or may not understand, but people who know about Alien certainly understand. So having a case completely dedicated to him as an entry point for everything else that you're going to see was really important to me.
Yeah, and it's front and center. It's the first thing you see when you walk in. Yeah.
We're talking about that Dan, we are here because of Dan O'Bannon's story. Without his story, without his vision, without his passion, we would not be here as fans, and we wouldn't have this legacy that we're celebrating. So, for sure. I don't want to keep you anymore. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. I will say this, sorry, before signing off. I take great pride in the merchandising aspects of the exhibits that I do. And I had these plans to have NECA provide all sorts of toys from across the years. And I don't want to throw shade, but they disappeared on me at a certain point. Mid-conversations, I have no idea. To this day, I haven't heard why we stopped talking. It was a very benign conversation up until that point. And believe it or not, I happened to mention this to one of our projectionists, one of our staff projectionists, who I always see tinkering with Star Wars models in the projection booth. And I'm like, oh man, I guess I can't do a merchandise case. And he's like, no. I've got this covered. So everything in there comes from one person, from our Patrick.
Wow.
He designed
the
display himself. So it's awesome. There's some of the stuff in there is just amazing. There's like a little Lego figurine, like a Lego man with a face hugger on him. And it's like that level of detail, it just blows my mind. I love it. In fact, John Landau happened to come through and see the exhibit en route to a screening we were doing of Alita Battle Angel. And he looked at that and he's like, oh, I've got to get you this like James Cameron action figure. And I didn't.
Oh yeah, right.
So in the next couple of days before the screening of the 40th anniversary screening of Alien on Saturday, I'm gonna find a way to incorporate the official James Cameron action figure into that exhibit. And there's a couple of cool other things coming in. We have a slate, the final slate from Aliens we're going to add.
Wow.
We've got Carter Burke's like dog tag, like ID from Aliens that's going to go in there, and a few other things to touch it up a little bit. And then we have the movies. I mean, we're screening the first 4 films. That's really a scheduling thing, by the way. I had to wait on Ridley, then I had to wait on James and Sigourney, and to even set the dates. And then by the time I actually had to put dates down for this, I only had time to do 4 screenings. So I might do Prometheus and Covenant over the summer, but I figured that for now, at least most of the students will have seen those 2 movies in theaters. So it's not as urgent. But man,
Sigourney Weaver's going to be at the Alien screening?
No, Sigourney is not coming at all, which is
okay.
kind of depressing. In fact, the only filmmaker out of the four that's coming in person is Jean-Pierre Jeunet, which is kind of funny to me because he's the one that lives the furthest away. But you know, I can't seem to lock Ridley down for anything. He should be sending us a video introduction. Cameron did that for us. So James Cameron will introduce our Aliens screening via pre-recorded video.
That's pretty awesome.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, that made me feel good. But so Cameron is now in New Zealand working on the Avatar films. There was a minute where it seemed like he might be able to get here before he left in late March, but you know, you can't really expect him to take time off of making 4 movies simultaneously to come talk about a film he made, 30 years ago.
Totally.
But so to complement the exhibit, we're going to have 4 screenings coming up in the next few weeks. So we're going to run Alien on Saturday, April 20th. And that discussion, just based on, a few major things like people no longer being with us, the fact that it was shot in the UK, so a lot of those people are not local. We have just a very small group of people, but I'm excited to speak with each one of them. Diane's going to be there to sort of represent Dan. Ron Shusett will be there. David Weitzner is going to be there, who was the EVP of marketing in 1979 at Fox. So we're going to learn about the origins of, in space, no one can hear you scream, that kind of stuff. I always really like getting a sort of behind-the-scenes studio perspective on their franchises, because that's often something that you don't really hear a lot about. Les Dilley will be there. He's not going to be on the panel because he can't stay, but he'll be there at the start of the night, the art director. Ridley will do some sort of video introduction that should be arriving in the next couple of days. I might get one from Roger Christian. But yeah, it's been a long road. I've invited so many people over the course of the 4 films, and it's just crazy how many people are not anywhere near Los Angeles. Yaphet Kotto's in Hawaii and doesn't fly. So we explored, like, what would it take to put him on a boat? But unfortunately, that obviously is a big time commitment, and there's not much you can do about that. And for Aliens, that's the one that has the most cast coming. Paul Reiser is going to be there, Lance Henriksen, Jeanette Goldstein, Rico Ross. But the big news for me is that Jean-Pierre Jeunet is going to come for Alien Resurrection. And, that's just one of those things that just kind of makes you feel good in my job, that, you reach out to so many agents and managers and publicists, and then someone like Jean-Pierre Jeunet writes back to you personally. And that is, that's really classy. I wish more Americans did that. But he's going to fly out here from Paris. We've contacted the American Cinematheque to do a whole lineup of his films before the weekend beforehand. So they'll run Delicatessen and City of Lost Children and Amelie, and they'll probably have a couple of Q&As with Jean-Pierre, and then we'll wrap up the retrospective part of the festival with our Resurrection screening. And Alec Gillis is actually going to sort of be the through line for the Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection Q&As, because he's going to be at all 3 of them. So we can talk a lot about the evolution of the alien creature design and stuff like that. I'm also
That's awesome.
I'm very excited about it. I'm also trying to make each evening a little bit extra special. So the documents that you saw in the cases, those were photographed by Fox back in January, and I'm going to try and actually put them on screen. But those are already available for public view. And I thought, what if I did like a slideshow of a lot of the other stuff that I have in the archive that I just don't have space for? So I was just scanning stuff today. I mean, I have all of these great casting sheets from when they were trying to cast the alien, creature that, Balaji Badejo wound up playing. And it's just amazing to look at, like, the range of people that they were looking at. I mean, Peter Mayhew auditioned for it. I was like, that's actual,
Wow.
that's actual news,
no
you
clue.
know?
Yeah.
And the casting lists. I mean, I also have like, probably not going to include this, but the casting for Alien, the alternate casting. There's some sheets you can see in the cases where Ridley has like little notes about the people who were auditioning. But I actually have like the headshots to go with those, including like Christopher Lloyd and Hector Elizondo and a bunch of other people that you actually have heard of, which is fun. So basically,
That's amazing.
I'm trying to create these slideshows that I'll slowly, like I'll do them in 4 parts so that there's one for every screening that has the stuff that, to my knowledge, has never been seen by the public. Whether or not it can have an afterlife, I don't know, but it'll be fun to do in the meantime. I mean, just even the fact that I don't know if anyone really understands why there's a photo of a cat in the exhibit. But in the archives, there is an entire folder called cat resumes. It's like, who are these cats? Who did they train with? You know, what are their credits? And and so I thought I'd just throw one in there. I mean, I really did that for me because it's just like a little nod to the cat resumes. But so I have like a few of them, and I'll actually be able to put them in context when I show them at the slideshow, during the slideshow. So there are a few treasures there.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's awesome. I'll probably try and attend the Resurrection one. I've actually met Jean-Pierre in person, and I was at Studio ADI, and I interviewed Alec and Tom. So I've met them more than one time. They're really great guys.
That's awesome.
That'd be great.
Yeah, Tom is unfortunately traveling, so he won't be there for any of these. But Alec will represent ADI, and
Fantastic.
so yeah, I mean that's where we're at. If anyone wants to look up, sort of current information about the screenings, if you're in Los Angeles, the website is cinema.usc.edu/alien. And if you scroll down, you'll see links to each individual film. The 40th anniversary is sold out, but there's still space on the other 3. And I should just tell your listeners, we do overbook. So assuming that you're going to go, the people who listen to your podcast are going to be the real genuine, like from the bottom of their souls, fans of this franchise, get on the list and show up early.
Sounds good.
I'm very jealous that I'm not going to be there for this, by the way.
And the Resurrection print is Jean-Pierre's personal print that's only been screened 6 times.
Wow.
And he says it's got like some special process that Darius Kanji like did to the print. I don't know.
The silver.
Yeah,
it's probably the silver treatment for the
EMT.
contrast.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that to me. Very excited about it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I look forward to hopefully seeing you at the Resurrection screening. I will try my best to get to that one. I remember seeing that in the theater when it came out 7 times. But yeah, thank you again so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you guys.
And thank you for your service to fandom. Seriously, this has been an incredible ride. And also it provided a great opportunity for me to get out to LA and finally hang out with Jaime after podcasting together for 3 years. So that was a nice,
nice
benefit.
Yeah, I really love that part of the podcast. Just hearing you two guys actually get together.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Never forget it.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you
so much.
Bye.
All right. Take care.